Brenna went on her way. She knew not what Argyle would get himself into this night, and as she walked the night streets, she whispered a brief prayer.
Sehanine, Maiden of the Moon, may you keep your cloak upon the thief Argyle this night.
Argyle, meanwhile, hid in an alley across the street from the Vampire's Kiss. One of the two buildings that the alley lay between was the shop of a furniture builder. Argyle hid behind a divan that had been scrapped and discarded. It was little more than busted wood and stained cushion, but its bulk served well enough as cover for a lookout point. He recalled something Garen had said to him once before.
Me, I'd prefer to never have to thieve from an elf. You remember old Lancey Burton? Ain't seen him in a while, have you? Well, nobody has, ever since he took that job in the Elven district. People say the ears of an elf can hear an owl flying in the woods, and their eyes can spot a rabbit hiding in the bushes on a moonless night. Yeah, we all know what happened to old Lancey. He was creeping around them city elf houses and got himself caught. In the forest, if an elf catches another elf trying to steal, they cut off the thief's hand so it'll scar, and then they exile him for a season, or a year, or maybe even more. Here in the city, though, they get real insulted if a human tries to steal from him. Do more than just scar the hand.
Argyle found it hard to believe that the elves would have murdered Lancey and then hid his body in their district. But still, Garen's story was unsettling, and it bothered Argyle, so that he tried many times to brush it from his mind. After about half an hour of waiting, Argyle, Ilanvain, and the rest of the elven party exited the Vampire's Kiss. A few of them were singing in Elven, some merry drinking song, and they seemed to have drank their fill. Argyle waited for them to move down the street some, and then proceeded to pursue them. Argyle is entering a skill challenge here to pursue the elves and eventually sneak into Ilanvain's house and rob him, hopefully. The first check he is making is a stealth check, as he attempts to dart from hiding spot to hiding spot, quietly and without being seen. Ooh, he rolls a 1. He gets a 9. The elves look back as Argyle splashes in a puddle as he enters some alleyway, and he has to wait for a while for them to move a little bit further down the street, not wanting to draw attention to himself. Next, he's making a perception check. He's let them gain some distance on him, and he's trying to keep track of them here on the dark night streets. He gets a 26, a success. He follows them, keeping a good distance for a ways. The next check he is making is a streetwise check. He's going to use his knowledge of this urban landscape and his street ability to make use of shortcuts and hiding spots. He gets a 23, success. Finally, he finds himself on the edge of the Elven district, which itself is actually a single winding street. The homes there are of human architecture, as almost all the buildings are here in Bontavia, but they are obviously modified by elves with their gardens, creeping vines, and a number of large trees that give this small wing of the city a forest-like feeling. Argyle is going to make another stealth check as he tries to move stealthily around the party that he is pursuing, as he now is making it to the edge of this elven district. That is another natural 1, another 9. Argyle steps on a dry twig while he is moving to hide behind a large tree at the street entryway into the Elven district, and again, he has to wait for them to move farther in. Trees and bushes and the winding layout of the district makes it hard for him to keep sight of them. He is making another perception check to try to keep track of them. 17, success. Argyle watches the elven party split up. Arlie and one of the elven men go one way. Ilanvain and a male and a female elf go another. Argyle follows them. He is making another stealth check moving through the elven district, trying to not be noticed by Illenvain and the other two, nor the residents of this district. 23 stealth. Stealthily, he makes his way to Illenvain's home, which he appears to share with the two others he's traveling with at the moment. It's a pretty well-kept house of stone and wood, with a thatched roof and wooden shutters. It probably holds some 5 rooms in total. Trees of all sizes grow throughout the yard. Argyle sneaks around the back and hides with his back to a wall under a window, listening carefully. After about an hour, the elves, wine-weary, quiet down and dim their lanterns. Argyle is making a thievery check to pick the lock of the back door. 19. Using his dagger in a shoddy piece of thick wire, Argyle gets the simple lock on the door to open. He opens the door very slowly, which has a slight creak to it, and he moves into the dark elven home. Inside, he can see very little. The only light is from a single lantern, which holds only the tiniest flicker of a flame from a dimmed wick. He can see 2 shut doors and an opening into a small dining room. He guesses that the 2 doors lead to the bedchambers where the elves are sleeping. He decides it's best to check the dining room. Straining his eyes in the darkness, he can make out only very rough shapes of tables and chairs and 2 barrels at the back of the room near a wooden counter. He treads cautiously, lest he stumble upon something in the blackness of the home. He feels his worn leather boot begin to step down on what feels like leaves, and he recoils it before he makes too much noise. Argyle's heart pounds. Damn this darkness. I've got to make use of that lantern. He went back into the main room, fetched the lantern from the center table, and went back into the dining area. Holding the dim light in front of him, he can see what looks like woven leaf mats on the floor, so he carefully steps over them. On the table are a number of earthenware plates and cups, and a set of unfinished arrow shafts. He approaches the 2 barrels, sets the lantern down, and quietly opens the first one. Inside, he finds small sacks of food stores, apples, wheat grain, potatoes, onions, and walnuts. He puts the nuts and 2 apples in his coat pocket, and then replaces the lid. He then opens the second barrel. I'm making a random roll here to see what's inside the barrel. Among the junk, he pulls out what looks like a magic scroll and 5 blank scrolls. He definitely tucks those away. The last thing he is doing at the moment is he is making his final check in the skill challenge. It is another stealth check, and he does so to keep quiet as he searches through the house and prepares to make off with the few items. 26. This is victory in the skill challenge. Argyle begins to flee the scene. Almost instinctively, he goes to set the lantern back on the table as he makes his way out of there, and he thinks to himself, "Wait, I might as well take this too. Well, so long, Illenvain, you knob-headed bastard." With that, Argyle slipped back out into the cool night. So the skill challenge is over. With victory, Argyle is making a final stealth check. This represents him making his way through the Elven District and back to Brenna's without being noticed by anybody. He gets a 20, which is a success. Argyle kept to the shadows and behind cover. He walked for a good half an hour, and at last he was at Brenna's apartment flat, whistling like a songbird at her door. When she opened it, he tossed her an apple and strode inside. "So, where have you been?" Argyle bit into his apple and grinned at Brenna as he chewed.